everybody today? Hopefully really well. I'm very excited about talking to everybody today about the E2 and the E1. The E1, our forgotten friend, that is actually a really, really cool visa. And for those of you, well, we'll talk about it when everybody gets here. We'll talk about it when everybody gets here. Sorry for the camera adjustment there. I just think you don't want to see who wants to see a ceiling fan, right? Not me. They work well aesthetically, maybe a little not perfect. Let's put it that way, not perfect. But we're going to get started here in a few seconds. I want to at least wait until 9 o'clock. So people who actually log in on time can join us. However, I love those of you who are here now. My dad always used to say, show your enthusiasm and be early. So I'm super excited for those of you who are showing your enthusiasm and getting here early. Thank you so much. All right, it is 9 o'clock. I'm going to give everybody 10 seconds. It's still 9 o'clock. So those who are logging on at 9 o'clock are still on time and they haven't missed anything, right? So we'll do another 8 seconds here and then I'm going to get started about the E2 and the E1 visa. Yeah, so I'm super excited to do that. And more of you are joining. Good morning, everybody, or good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. My name is Angie Rupert, and I'm founder of Rupert Law, and we handle exclusively E2 and E1 visas. So a lot of people, hey, Jason, great to see you. Thanks so much. A lot of people are wondering what's going on with the E2 and E1 visas in the summer of 2026, like we are now, right? Things are a little wild all over the place. US immigration has been, shall we say, not been given amazing PR this year, but I am here to tell you the E2 and E1 visas are still great options for those of you who have that entrepreneurial spirit, who really want to start a business or continue to run their own business with more US clients. These are still great visa options. People are still getting approved. We've had multiple approvals this year, including one yesterday in London. So we are really excited to talk about that. So anyway, I want to start a little bit by talking about the E1 visa. It's our forgotten friend. It's a very rare visa, but such an amazing option. Don't tell anyone, but it's my favorite US visa. And here's why. For those of you who have a business in your home country that have a lot of US clients, and you're thinking, maybe we should just relocate to the US, continue to get those clients, the E1 might be a great option for you. Here are the plus sides. No investment necessary. None. None. Okay. You don't need to invest in order to get an E1 visa. Also, for those of you who are like, yeah, I'd like to spend more time in the US, but I don't necessarily want to live there, but maybe at some point I would want to live there, the E1 visa is great for you. The E1 really doesn't have ties to how long you need to be in the US, how long you need to be out of the US. So these are great. The E1 is a great option. For those of you who already have an existing business in your home country, and you have a lot of US clients or vendors or customers, that type of thing. If that sounds like you, the E1 could be amazing. No investment necessary, no US employees necessary. Okay, you could have those things, it's possible, but they are not requirements for that visa. So this is something that could happen relatively easily for you if you have your own business in your own country and US customers, clients, vendors, that type of thing. Because that visa is to say, hey, I'm still going to run this business in my home country, but I want to come to the US a lot more. In fact, maybe even live in the US to get more customers and clients for my business in the home country. No investment needed, no US employees needed. You don't need even an office space in the US, okay? And all of the requirements and all of the documentation you likely already have because they want to see how many US people are paying you, what you're paying people in the US, things like that, okay? And if you have a good accountant, you probably already have those documents. So the E1 visa is something to really look into because you're not actually risking a lot moving forward. It's all about your past documents, okay? So it's a lot faster, typically, and no investment, no US employees. It's great. So if this sounds like you, I have a take two. If you have a business in your own country with a lot of US customers, clients, that type of thing, think about the E1, look into the E1, and of course, give me a call if you want to talk about the E1 visa. We love them, and they are really a tremendous option, particularly at this time in US immigration history. Love the E1. We'd love to be doing a lot more than that. So now let's talk about the E2, one you're probably much more familiar with. And of course, we do tons of E2 visas. This is essentially what we do. A few E1s, lots of E2s, and here we are. Okay, so for those of you who are here wanting to talk about the E2 visa or wanting to know more about the E2 visa, let's talk a little bit about how things are different in 2026 than maybe how they were in 2024 or 2025. From a consular perspective, what are some changes? None of the requirements have changed at all. So let me just start right there. Requirements are the same. What has changed? Some of the flexibilities in, hey, especially those of you from, let's say, Turkey, Colombia, some of the other places where the consulates are way backed up. In 2024, in most of 2025, you could maybe go to Toronto, right? File as a third country applicant in Toronto and go through the interview there, etc. That option is no longer available. You have to either be like a resident there, having some sort of visa that allows you to live there, work there, that type of thing, or a passport holder in order to apply in any consulate. Okay. So that is something that has changed a little bit. For some countries, it really makes almost no difference. For those where the consulates were working at a relatively quick pace, that type of thing. Okay. So for those of you in Canada, for example, for those of you in Mexico, for those of you in Australia, it doesn't really affect that much. All right. But that is something to consider. Number two, everybody has to go to an interview now. So it used to be that only those people who were 14 and over had to go to the interview. So obviously you and your spouse always had to go. But if you had small kids, under 14, they didn't have to go. It just saved everybody a lot of headache. That is no longer the case. So yes, your 6-month-old baby has to go to an interview. Luckily, the questions are pretty easy. They don't ask questions of the children, but for whatever reason, they need to be physically present at the interview. So yes, your 2-year-old needs to go to an E2 visa interview if they are getting the E2 visa. Okay. So keep that in mind. So that's that. Let's see. Third of all, there have been some changes with USCIS. Okay. Notably, those of you who have talked to me or talked to others about changing status from sometimes an F1 or a TN or whatever to the E2 while you're physically present in the United States, meaning you're not going to the interview, you're sending in a variety of documents to USCIS and they are adjudicating you are staying here in the United States. So historically, as long as you got your documents in by the day before your I-94 expired and they were accepted, you could just kind of wait it out and wait for your response. That is still true today. However, if at the end of that time that USCIS is looking at things and pending and all of that, they decide, no, we're denying this for whatever reason, if your I-94 has already expired, you can get a notice to appear in deportation. So please keep in mind, if you are planning on changing status, you need to do that well in advance of that I-94 date. Okay. You're also going to need a premium process because you do not want to sit around and wait for 7 or 8 months. That's always kind of been the case. That's not really new. But so just keep that in mind. For those of you who are interested in changing status, you're going to need to make sure that your attorney has all of those documents no less than 120 days before your I-94 date, and you're going to need to premium process. Okay. So just kind of keep those things in mind. That is going to really, really help you. All right. So plan well in advance for USCIS. As far as interviews go, so for the most part, the interviews are the same, maybe a little stricter on some of the requirements. But overall, generally the same. There are a couple of new questions that they must ask. Okay. They are supposed to be asking you, have you ever feared for your life or your safety in your home country? If you say yes to something like that, you will likely be denied, right? They're doing something where they are trying to prevent you from applying for asylum later or something. This is the supposed reason. Now, are they asking these things in the interview? Unclear. As far as the person that I told you got approved in London yesterday, it appears they did not ask them that question. And I don't know if, in Toronto, Sydney, Melbourne, if they're asking these types of questions, but in some countries they likely are. Okay. So just be very aware of that. That question could come. So with that, that's me doing a ton of talking, but I would love to answer some questions for you. And we do have a question here already, but the rest of you, please type some questions in. I'm here to answer your questions. Let's see. Can an 18-year-old apply for the E2 visa? Yes, you can. What are your odds of approval? That really depends. So there are no age restrictions on the E2 visa. None. Okay. Anybody can apply for an E2 visa. However, you do have to make sure that the consular officer can understand how you are going to successfully direct and develop the business, right? And sometimes the trick there is showing I have no work experience. I hardly have any money of my own. I got a gift from my parents or my grandparents or my aunt or my brother or whoever. I have no work experience, but trust me, I'm going to be able to successfully run a business in the United States. Now, there are applicants who do fit into that category, very young investors who are able to let the consular officer are able to show in that interview that yes, they're going to be able to successfully run this business. So if you are one of those kids, then yes, you could definitely apply. There are no restrictions, but definitely be aware that is going to be something that comes up in your interview is how are you going to successfully run this business? And you need to be very, very well prepped for that interview. That is going to be the key there. So with that, let's see. There are no other questions in queue. Anybody else have one out there? I will talk a little bit about some things that we have also seen. This is another new trend, I guess, at some consulates. Again, never happened to any of my clients, but we attorneys tend to talk a little bit, and this has happened to some, is that during the E2 interview, they may Google your name, particularly if you have an unusual name, right? If you're Jack Smith, they probably won't do it because that could turn up a million different people, right? But if you do have kind of an unusual name, something like that, sometimes at the window while you're doing the interview, this is what we have heard, is that they will Google your name and go, oh, what's this? What's this about? What's that? Okay, so just be prepared. You should definitely know everything that is about you online. And of course, social media vetting. That's not specifically for E2 visa applicants yet. That's more for F1s, M1s, J1s, H1Bs, but that could happen at some moment. That could shift overnight, right? Where they're now looking at all E2 visa applicant social media. They are likely looking anyway, but they are not required to do that at this time, but you should definitely be very well aware of everything that's on your social media. Let's see what happens when they turn a certain age. I'm not sure what that means. Okay. Airbnb arbitrage, a legit business model to apply for the E2. If yes, can we use business funding instead of personal funds? Business funding, no. You absolutely cannot do a business loan. That is not possible. No, it is not. Do not do an SBA loan. I don't even believe you qualify as a non-US citizen. But even if you do, and I'm not sure because I've never applied for one, but even if you do, absolutely do not use that for the E2. No, it must be personal funds. Now, you could get a personal loan from a family member. You could potentially get a personal loan from some other source, right? Like a line of credit on your house or something like that. But it absolutely must be personal funds. So that is a non-starter. Don't even think about getting some sort of business loan or something. Also be aware. So this was something that happened years and years and years ago. But this is something to really, really, well, and actually it happened yesterday, oddly. Weird. A couple of different tips about loans. So number one, we had an investor years ago in his home country. He had a business, okay? And so he got a loan based on that business and then wanted to use that to start the E2 company. Well, upon kind of reading some of the finer points there, it very specifically says this money cannot be used for any other business, cannot, whatever. And so it was not eligible because that language in the loan. It actually happened yesterday with a client of ours as well on a personal loan. So this had nothing to do with the business loan, but it's a personal loan. So, but it was through an institution, not through like a family member or a friend or something, but through an institution, a loan through an institution. And there was a language in there that said, oh, this cannot be used for any business purpose or for any investment purpose. That was kind of buried in the, 12-page loan doc. Not eligible. So be very, very careful when you're talking about loans through institutions, because that is definitely something that can come up. Okay. As far as Airbnb, yeah, it's possible. Actually had a lead about that yesterday, a consultation about an Airbnb business yesterday. We have had that scenario before. That was successful. Of course, everybody's facts are different and all different types of things, but it has worked in the past. You do have to meet those E2 visa requirements, but we do have a video about that. So if you are really interested in the Airbnb property management type model, go ahead and search our YouTube channel. We do have one for short-term property management. There's some more information in there getting specific with that. Okay. Can you talk about kids and what happens with them as they get older? Do they have to leave at some point? Yes, they do. So if you are married and have children, you as the applicant can continue to renew the E2 visa indefinitely, as long as you still meet the requirements, right? So it really depends on the visa reciprocity of where your passport is from, how often you need to reapply, usually between 2 and at the very, 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 very last moment, 7 years. But again, that really depends on your country, right? So every country has a different timeline and whatever. But you and your spouse, as long as you continue to meet the E2 visa requirements, can continue to renew it. So you could do it for 40 years if you want, whatever. But your kids will age out on their 21st birthday, regardless of when they got this E2. If they get it at 6 months old, the day they turn 21, party is over. Okay. So what we always recommend for people is on their 20th birthday, they start figuring out their next steps. Now, a lot of kids are in college at that time. So on their 20th birthday or the day after, if they're having a party, they need to go talk to their international student advisor and go, listen, here's the situation. I turned 21 on this date, which is about a year from now, but I need to start getting all of my documents in order. What do I need to do? Whatever, then apply for it. So there's a smooth transition, right? So hopefully you get the F1 a couple of months before your 21st birthday, and then we all just kind of move on and there's no thing. But of course, that F1 is going to expire at some point as well. So yes, they will have to do that. Keep in mind also for kids, they can go to school. Yes, they can. They can never work. Now, your spouse can work. Kids on E2s can never work. Okay. They can go to school. They cannot work. So if you are applying and you have a 19-year-old and a 17-year-old, like, great, they can work at Baskin Robbins or whatever. No, they cannot. They can go to school. They cannot work. Okay. Let's see here. How long does the U.S. Consulate General hold passports for in Toronto? Usually about a week. So you'll go to the interview if you are approved. They will normally tell you while you stand there. Not in every case. There is one exception. They put you in admin processing. But if you are approved, you will usually leave your passport there. You'll go home. And about a week later, the passport comes in the mail with the visa. Now, you are the one that dictates where that passport goes. There is a pickup option as well, but that generally is kind of how that works. Let's see. What else do we have here? Somebody who has not asked. Oh, okay. Any update on E2 visa renewal? No, I wouldn't say so. I have not experienced anything. Well, I guess let me take that back. So in the past, there were certain people that would qualify for an interview waiver. That is no longer an option. So you're going to always have to go to an interview. In some instances, like in Canada, that actually makes things a little bit easier, frankly. But yes, so that would be an update. And just overall, you want to make sure that your business is strong, right? So if you have a renewal coming up, you need to talk to the first attorney who helped you to say, hey, here are my revenues, top level revenues for 20, in this case, for 2025. On my 2025 taxes, here are my top level revenues, and here's my profitability. And I have this many W-2s, I have this many 1099s. Where are we at? You know, and if you talk to them now, and let's say that your renewal is not up until maybe summer of 2027, that's great news, because if the numbers aren't so great, you still have 6 months before your 2026 taxes are in the books, right? That you can, oh, I'm going to hire a couple more people, so I have a couple more W-2s. We're really going to push revenues the last half year. So, you know, that type of thing. So you want to make sure, I always recommend for people when you're renewing, like our clients, I always like reach back out around a year. Now, if their revenues are great, they have a lot of employees, whatever, I say, great, let's talk again in 6 months. But if they're struggling, we need to start a strategy now to make sure that those next tax returns look a lot better. Okay. So something just to kind of keep in mind. So you guys know, I can talk about the E2 or the E1 visa all day long. That is no problem, but I don't want to bore everyone. So I'm going to answer like 2 or 3 more questions, and then I'm going to wrap for today. However, you know, you can reach out at any time, and we can always, you know, chat about the facts of your case. Okay. So let's see. How long does it take you to set up an interview at the consulate once you have all the paperwork ready? So that really depends on where you are applying. Every consulate has a different review and waiting period until the interview, every single one. So there are some that are relatively quick, although I would say you should never in any case ever expect to have an interview in less than 6 weeks from when you submit the documents. I just don't. Could one of you get lucky and it could be like 4 or 5 weeks? Yes, but you should not plan on that. Now, if you're in Turkey, London, Bogota, plan on like 6 or 7 months. Yes, 6 or 7 months. You have to keep the business operating. You have no authorization to work here, so you have to work remotely and hope that your U.S. employees are doing a great job. But just keep that in mind. There are some consulates and embassies that are really, 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 really slow, and there are some that are working at a decent pace. Right? I would say if you're going to a consulate or embassy that works at a decent pace, plan on 6 to 8 weeks at least. Summer does get a little bit busier. It does get a little bit busier, and keep in mind that those consular officers are rotated throughout August and September. Okay. U.S. consular officers are moved every 2 years. And so sometimes if you are going to Toronto, let's say on September 4th is your interview, I don't know, whatever, you're going to have new officers who just got there. And if they just came from, let's say, Bangladesh, they are going to need a lot of training on the E2 visa, because in Bangladesh, although a treaty country, very few people actually apply there. Okay. So they may have only seen 5 or 6 E2s in the last 2 years. So if they go to Toronto and there's an E2 visa unit, they're going to need a lot of training. So sometimes when you file in the summer or early fall, there's a little bit more of a lag time, even at consulates that are working at a good clip, because sometimes those officers are new, they need extra training, you know, blah, blah, blah. So just kind of keep that in mind. Okay. Let's see. All right. What's the waiting time for interviews in Australia? It really depends. There are 3 places you can apply in Australia: Melbourne, Sydney, or Perth. They all operate on their own. They all have their own calendar. We had someone approved in Melbourne 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, something like that. And she applied, oh geez, like, okay, so I know she was approved at maybe the 1st or 2nd week of May. And I feel like the documents were submitted there in the middle of March, something like that. I mean, it was relatively quick. It wasn't crazy. That was in Melbourne. Perth is usually quick, but you have to go to Perth, right? So that's kind of what's going on there. Okay, final question, guys. But you know that I am always around for additional questions. So please reach out. Like, I'm happy to talk about it. And I really want to talk about the E1. So if any of you, actually, I'm going to give you all 15 extra seconds. If somebody has an E1 question, please ask. Who should ask questions about the E1? People who have businesses in their home country that have a lot of US customers, clients, or vendors. If that sounds like you, I am here to tell you the E1 visa is an amazing opportunity for you. No investment needed, no US employees needed, no office space in the US needed. Okay, that's for the E1. Visa fees at every renewal because it is significant. Dang it, not an E1 question. The answer is yes. You have to get your visa reciprocity fees at every application. That is the answer. And yes, you are right. The Netherlands and Australia, it's unfortunate for you guys. Everybody else is either nothing or a couple $100. I know it's a real pain in the behind, but we love Australians. We do lots and lots of applications in Australia. Anybody have an E1 question before we split today? Maybe not. Dang it. I love the E1. Please look into the E1 if you have a business in your home country with lots of US customers, clients, etc. British film producer. All right. Simon, I'm a British film producer and do business with US studios and TV networks. Should I go for an E1 even though I've had an E2? Well, the answer is I don't know how you had an E2. I mean, if it's in the business that's already registered and you're just renewing the E2, that's probably easier. But if you have, oh, I had an E2 several years ago. Now I've got this new business. I don't live in the US anymore. I've kind of taken it, whatever. Then I would say that the E1 could be an interesting option for you. Here's what you need to ask yourself. In the last 12 months, do I have at least $200,000 from US customers or clients, or have I paid US vendors at least $200,000? That's number one. In the last 12 months, okay? Number two, have I paid people in the US or have US people paid me at least 6 times in the last 12 months? Not like, oh, I got one payment for $180,000 and then one payment for $20,000. Have you gotten multiple, at least 6 in the last 12 months where you paid someone or they paid you? And number three, do you have of all your international trade? So, hey, this is a UK company. The UK stuff is its own thing, but we have some clients in Italy. We have some clients in the Bahamas. We have some clients in the United States. Are the US clients at least 50% of all the international stuff? So, oh, we trade, I pay Italy, Italy cinematographers $100,000. I pay whatever, Foley editors in the Bahamas $100,000. I pay, our CGI people in Canada $100,000, and then I pay people in the US $700,000. Then you're there, right? Because your total trade is $1 million, 100, 100, 100, and 700. More than 50% of your international trade is with the US. If that sounds like you, that could be an option because no investment needed, no US employees needed, no office space needed. You might have those things because of other reasons, but for the visa, it is not a requirement. Those things are not a requirement. So keep that in mind. With that said, we're going to wrap for today. You guys have seen me for the last almost 30 minutes. That's plenty for everybody. But it has been an absolute pleasure today. Thank you so much for joining. I really, really, really appreciate it. I'm hoping to hear from all of you. Rupert at rupertlawgroup.com. We're here to talk about your E2 and E1 visas, guys. Thank you so much. Have an amazing day. Thank you. Bye.